Thank you very much. I'm Al Schmeiser. I am a patent trademark copyright attorney in this area. More importantly, I've worked with Sharon Slater and Family Watch for years and have been phenomenally impressed by the wonderful work that they do. Sharon asked if I'd take a little bit of time tonight to give you a little overview of what's happening at the UN. I think back to 1971 when, thank you. I think back to 1971 when Roe v. Wade came out and the Supreme Court, found abortion to be legal. That was obviously a very bad decision, but at least it was one that went through the normal chain. It went up through the courts. It was visible. Okay. Right now, what we're dealing with is things that happen at the UN that are much more insidious. There's a battle going on for the hearts and minds of people and for our kids, our grandkids, and it's a tremendous danger. I said I'm an attorney, and I always looked at law as a shield that was meant to protect people. So, if we go to the next slide. This is just to give you a little overview about how international policies impact U.S. laws. Okay, you always grow up thinking that a law has to be voted on. You have your congressmen, you have your senators, and it goes through a process. It's visual, you see it, you kind of know what's going, you have a chance to object. Okay, well, unfortunately, treaties can become adopted as U.S. laws when the Senate ratifies them. So you can have a treaty that may be totally opposed to some U.S. laws, and if that treaty is ratified, is chosen by the President, is supported, ratified by the Senate, it can become laws. What happens then is our courts cite these international documents and things like that, and then turn that into court rulings. And then states tend to adopt them. And this kind of comes from the U.S. Constitution, if we go to the next slide. U.S. Constitution, Article 6, Paragraph 2. All treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. And anything in the Constitution or any state or laws of the state to the contrary notwithstanding. So if we go to the next slide. So how this happens is you have international policy, you have things happening at the UN, and you have people who have certain beliefs, okay, generally contrary to probably what all of us believe, and these international policies are put forth in UN resolutions and things like that. It's there where Family Watch has been, in many ways, most effective in fighting these against these various resolutions and policies at the UN in order to get in language that's pro-family, that supports our family, protects our children, our women, our way of life. Okay, so these international policies, and I'll give you an example here, citing to one of these international policies, U.S. Supreme Court cited, quote, international norms, okay, in the case of Lawrence v. Texas, which struck down the state anti-sodomy laws. And that became then cited in state policy in Massachusetts, and they used the reasoning in Lawrence case to promote and make same-sex marriage the law in Massachusetts. Okay, then that goes down onto a more local level, where because this is now the law in Massachusetts, you had 5-year-olds being taught about homosexual relationships with books like, The Two Kings or The Two Princes, and things like that, and indoctrinated. And in one particular case, a father who wanted to pull his kids out of school actually got jailed overnight. And when that case went up, the decision was that since that was the law of the land, the schools had every right to teach the children about those laws and what they stood for. So, to give you an idea how perverse this is, a lot of countries, unfortunately right now, the United States is probably the biggest perpetrator. Liberal countries and activists and various NGOs exert pressure on governments, oftentimes threatening to withhold funding unless certain laws are changed. In example, Planned Parenthood distributes publications at the UN conferences to influence the negotiations. One of the arguments that they make is that young people are entitled to sexual pleasure, and how to experience different forms of sexual pleasure is important for the health and well-being of the child. Okay, so that's the kind of thing you're dealing with, all right? And unfortunately, these are things that you'll never necessarily see, because again, if they come in as policies at the UN and are implemented, then they can be cited by judges and laws can be changed that all of a sudden you're living in a much different world than you ever knew existed and that you ever wanted to. Okay, if we could go on. An example of this, Convention for the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Well, that sounds like a wonderful thing. I mean, why should we discriminate against anybody? All right? So this is an example of one of those groups that have a wonderful title that sounds very something we all want. We don't want discrimination. But if you go to the next slide, we'll find out what that really means. Okay? That same committee, CEDAW, cited recommending the decriminalization of prostitution in China, because if you criminalize prostitution, then that's not giving women the right to choose whatever profession they want. They urged Mexico to provide access to rapid and easy abortion under the idea of not discriminating against women. They've gone on and done other things, told the Czech Republic. They were concerned that the country was overprotective of those who are, of pregnancy and motherhood. So these laws are used in a way, or these policies are used in a way that are way different than their intended purpose. And I've worked with Sharon on some of these things, and it's fascinating when you read some of the language that they try to get into various policies and things like that, and you read it and it sounds so good. It's, oh, that seems reasonable. But then when you look back and you see how those things are implemented, and there are numerous people at the UN, countries that support the same kind of views, that need help sometimes in understanding the effects of some of this language that sounds so reasonable. It's like when you call abortion, instead of calling it abortion, you call it a right to choose, okay? And the people who seem to be lined up on the other side of us are very good at making things sound very reasonable and then implementing them in a way that's exactly the opposite. Another example, if we go on, and this is the kind of language you deal with. The child will have the right to freedom of expression. Well, we want our kids to talk up and be able to freely express themselves. I mean, who wouldn't? But this right shall include freedom to seek, receive, and impart information, ideas of all times. This kind of language sometimes can actually be used in order to suppress parental influence. That's probably one of the reasons, this kind of attitude is one of the reasons why, if you have a daughter or a granddaughter, she can't go to the school nurse and get a aspirin without your permission, okay? But she can go down the block and get an abortion, all right? Because we wouldn't want to limit her ability to choose. So these are the types of things. We'll go to the next slide. And I'm going through this fast just to give you an overview. Sharon's the main event here, and I'm looking forward to some of the things that she has. So what are some of the global trends? Well, citing the Equal Employment Opportunity Office, their commissioner, when there's a conflict between religion and sexual rights, he was quoted as saying, "I'm having a hard time coming up with any case in which religious liberty should win." Okay? Because sexual liberty should always, virtually always win, because that's the only way that the dignity of gay people can be affirmed in a realistic manner. Now, I just have to stop here. One of the things that those who we tend to fight do is they want to make it sound like we hate people. okay? And we don't, okay? I've been part of efforts to provide, you know, better help and support for those who struggle with those types of issues. So this isn't about that. This is about the implementation of policies that are very, very hurtful, sometimes to the very people who support them. Again, I mentioned, for example, that I was a hemophiliac, okay? Hemophiliac is a bleeder. My clotting time when I was young was less than 1% of normal. That's not a good thing, okay? So it would be like saying, well, Al's a hemophiliac. He should have the right to play with razor blades. Okay? I mean, doesn't that make sense? I mean, how could we restrict this poor little boy from playing with razor blades? Okay? And, you know, and give me the right to basically injure myself and you know, with some pretty dramatic results. So let me just give you a little bit of overview on how some of these things have been implemented in various places around the world. If you go to the next one. Okay. In some of the employment cases, European courts and human rights. And realize that a lot of times things happen in Europe. I just got back from Denmark. Okay, and I actually gave a presentation to a bunch of 14, 15-year-olds. And the family that I was staying with, friends of ours, very religious, had very good moral and ethical beliefs, and they held fast to them. And the mother complained that she was always fighting against some of the other parents in Denmark because drinking age is at 16. And so they're like, well, if there's a party for our 14-year-olds, it doesn't really hurt if they drink and if they try these different things. And when I gave my presentation there, I started talking about various values. You could tell that many of the youth there were starving, okay, to hear that they could make good choices and exercise their agency, and that they didn't have to succumb to those norms. Well, what has happened in some of those courts, in Europe it tends to be a little bit ahead of us in a bad way sometimes. You know, to give you an example, a woman was fired because she would not register same-sex civil partnerships. A counselor was fired because he had moral doubts as to his ability to counsel same-sex couples. Let me just give you a little clarification on that. Okay, he wasn't saying anything bad about them. He just said, I think because of my beliefs, I'm not the best person to help you. You know, you should go to someone else. As a copyright attorney, patent trademark copyright attorney, a number of years ago, I had a husband and wife come into my office. Okay, nice couple. They sat down. The man explained that his copyrights were being infringed. Okay, that's what I do. Okay, I said, not a problem. I can, you know, we can help you. I said, what happened? He said he was trying to put out a publication. It sent some photographs and things to a publisher, and the publisher had never paid for them. And then all of a sudden, the pictures started appearing in various books and magazines. And the publisher had stole his pictures. I said, well, that's fine. I said, we can definitely help you with that. Then he pulled out the pictures, okay? Pictures were the person sitting across the table from me, his wife, okay? I don't have to say any more, all right? I was like, put the pictures away, and I will refer you to somebody who will, I'm sure, be willing to help you to protect your rights. But I'm not doing it because I'm not going to look at those pictures. I'm not going to deal with that topic. Okay, I was approached by Planned Parenthood back in New York, asked me to be their copyright attorney. Okay, I told them very nice that they had every right under our law to get copyright protection, but I wasn't the person to do it because I had a moral disagreement with them, and they would be better served by working with somebody who, you know, thought the way they did. Right? Never in my mind did I think that if I did that today, I could possibly get sued. Okay, maybe go to jail. If we, let's go on to the next one. And this is kind of more of the same. Let's go to the next one. Starts with that. Providing public service. Because of these laws, some adoption services have shut down. Some churches have been required to provide contraception under healthcare laws, even though religious beliefs are falling prey to this kind of revolution, these kind of studies, okay? And the last one is what I was talking about. A photography service cannot refuse to photograph commitment ceremonies for lesbians due to Christian beliefs, okay? You would think it's your own business, you can do what you want. Okay, so our rights are being eroded. A printing service cannot refuse to print letterhead for homosexual advocacy groups. And I would put in there, Al Schmeiser cannot refuse to do copyright law for Planned Parenthood, nor can Al Schmeiser refuse to protect copyright rights of an individual who's taking naked pictures of his wife and publishing them in seedy magazines. Okay? I apparently don't have that right anymore. You know, a woman refused to rent rooms to a gay couple due to her religious beliefs. She was fined $5,700 for that atrocity. And I would mention there, she also had declined to rent rooms to unmarried heterosexual couples. She just wanted married couples, if they were staying together, to be in her place. But apparently she doesn't have that right anymore. Okay, next slide. So what are sexual rights when we talk about them in the UN setting? Sexual rights in the UN setting relate to a right to reproductive services, abortion services, things like that, sexual expression and relations, okay, with virtually no limitations, and obviously rights based on sexual orientation and gender, and access to this education. So this is stuff that is not, it's being used in a way to promote an agenda. It's being used in a way to promote beliefs and to pretty much trample upon the beliefs of many of those who, I would guess, like us, hold to the values that you know, that we were raised with and all along thought was right. It's kind of like the world's getting turned upside down. Go to the next slide. So what are the biggest obstacles to sexual rights? So you have to realize that a lot of the people at the UN, you know, they are promoting these sexual rights. And who is it that they have to fight? Well, the two biggest opponents that they have to their agenda of promoting this is religion and parents and the family. Okay. So what they seek to do is they seek to reduce the ability that those organizations, parents or the family or any religious organization can have in order to promote what they want to promote. Okay, so why is this so important? And here's why, when I talked about me being a hemophiliac and not being allowed to play with razor blades, let's go to the next. Okay, this is perfect. What are the outcomes of homosexual sex? Okay, now this is from the Gay and Lesbian Medical Association. This isn't even the AMA. This is their group, okay? And this is what these individuals who have, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, but who live this lifestyle, okay? First of all, they have a very high increased risk of HIV infection. They have a increased risk of sexually transmitted disease. They use substances at a higher rate, including alcohol, tobacco, and drugs, which also have a negative effect on their life. They suffer from greater depression and anxiety, and they have increased rates of certain forms of cancer, okay? It astonishes me that the very people who are being hurt by these policies are the people who are most vocal in support of the policies, which are hurting people just like them. You know, it's like, again, like telling that hemophiliac he has every right to play with razor blades. Okay, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Let's go to the next one. What are the outcomes of prostitution and abortion? Well, women who have abortion have a much increased you know, effect of many physical and psychological conditions, 7 times more likely to commit suicide. You would think that if there was something in our society that was 7 times more likely to cause you to commit suicide, that you would ban that. Okay? If there was a food out there that was more likely to make you commit suicide, it would get taken off the shelves. Okay? But in this case, that's exactly the opposite. They promote these things that are having this negative effect on the poor individuals that are subject to them, that fall prey to these things. And as we heard earlier, some of those are youth who may be trafficked, okay? This is all one big round that's causing all these trouble. 4 times more likely to have fatal accidents. 14 times more likely to die from homicide, okay? With prostitution, there's a negative cycle with pornography, increased violence against women, sexual slavery, as we heard, and there are many health issues. Yet these things are being promoted aggressively at the UN, okay? It doesn't make much sense. Why do religious rights matter? Well, because religious beliefs and practices protect against social disorder and dysfunction, okay? Where there's, and we're not promoting any particular religion. When I talked in Denmark, I had to be very careful because while every holiday they have there is a religious holiday, I don't think anybody really practices it except a very few, okay? But I talked to them about some sort of religion, some sort of belief, something that is more than yourself. So even if you water it down to that level, okay? Religious beliefs and practices protect against social disorder and dysfunction. Where there's a belief, higher levels of marital happiness and stability, stronger parent-child relationships, greater educational attainment, and these are based on studies that are irrefutable. Better work habits, greater physical health, stronger community cohesion, less crime and violence, lower rate of drug use, depression, and suicide. I'll just take the drug use as an example. If we go to the next slide. Okay, this is a slide that shows from studies that have been done, adolescents, grades 7 through 12, where there's church attendance weekly, okay, the percentage who have used hard drugs is 7.72%. Where church attendance is more than once a month, it's 11%, 11.22. Where it's less than once a month, it's 16.22, and where they never go, it's almost 18%. Okay, statistically, those values are the very values that are essential to be promoted to have a safe, secure society and provide protection for those. If we go to the last slide, okay. Given all these facts, why are they winning? Well, let me just say that I looked up the definition of vocal minority, and it's a small group of individuals that frequently and strongly voice their opinions, contrasting with the silent majority that makes up most of the population base, but rarely gives their opinions. Okay, and thank goodness for Family Watch, for people like that, people like yourself, who will take a night, will come out, and will support something like that. And hopefully, as the opportunities present yourself, will step up verbally in any way you can in order to promote the values that the country was founded on and promote the values that will lead to a happier, healthy generation to come. And